everyone, Kalla here. Welcome to my live stream. Glad you could make it today. So today we are playing more Hakuouki Chronicles of Wind and Blossom. Last time our girl Chizuru here witnessed something that the Shinsengumi are trying to keep under wraps. The only thing that saved her from death was, one, being a girl, and two, being related to someone that they're also looking for. But she's effectively been under house arrest until just recently, when she finally got to go out and actually search. Or at least help search. We didn't find him, we found someone else. And we've brought him back. And I believe that's where we are. Hello Nick, hello Drag. How are you doing? Once we returned to the compound, all of the captains gathered. They surrounded Soma, glaring intently at him. The air was suffocatingly still. I'm doing fine, other than having a really messed up sleep schedule. I need to fix that. I hope you get to come in from the cold soon, Drag. I guess at least it's not dark out there yet. I hadn't felt this way at the compound since my arrival. Oh yeah, he has a drawing that we have not found out what's on it, but clearly it's a problem.
Oi, さっきは知り合いの絵師だって言ったじゃねえか。記憶にないな。
おい、てめえ、嘘をつくのもいい加減にしろよ。
ねえ君、何も話すつもりがないなら切っちゃうけど、それでもいい
？Mokuto reached for his sword, but Saito moved his arm in front to stop him.
待て、掃除。三男さんの話が先だ。
相馬くんと言いましたね。あなたはこの絵を何を描いたものだと思っていますか？
浅黄色の大服を着た新選組大使だ。
Okay, it's a Shinsengumi. It's a drawing of a Shinsengumi member.
確かに着物はそうですね。ですがこの絵の人物は白髪で目が赤く口が裂けています。
Okay, yep. Yep, I can see why this is a problem.
あなたはこれを見て何とも思いませんでしたか？
確かに変だとは思ったが、そいつが新選組は鬼のような奴らだって言ってたから、そうなのかなって。
What's special about it is that it basically looks like what we saw, which we weren't supposed to see.
なるほど。鬼ですか。的を射ているかもしれませんね。ところで、新選組のことをよく知っていて絵の心得がある人物。私たちにも心当たりがないわけではありません。これを描いたのは伊吹くんですね。
Soma's eyes grew wide. Defeated, he gave a small nod.
もう一度聞くぞ。この絵はこれ一枚きりなんだ。
捨てるつもりだって言ってたのを無理やりもらってきたからな。だがなんだってこの絵のことで俺がこんな目に遭わなきゃならないんだ。
こんな鬼みてえな絵が市中に出回ってみろ。俺たちの評判が今まで以上に落ちるに決まってるだろうが。
それは確かに。
というわけでこの絵は没収させていただきます。いいですね。
I see they're basically dealing with this as by framing it as defamation. Senan's rhetorical question left Soma no room to negotiate. He could only sigh in defeat.
わかった。好きにしてくれ。俺の疑いもこれで晴れたんだろう。
His face looked haggard, exhausted from stress. Which makes sense, given he's just been grilled over something that's like, it's just hot. Like, why did I get arrested over this? Kondo stepped forward slowly and nodded.
相馬くんだったな。俺は会津藩お預かり新選組局長を務めている近藤勇という。うちの大使が手荒な真似をしてしまってすまなかったな。許してほしい。
Kondo bowed deeply in a sincere display of courtesy. Soma was caught off guard, his eyes growing wide. Instantly he became flustered.
顔を上げてくれ。あなたは新選組局長なのでしょう。俺みたいな小心な者に頭を下げるなんて。
I didn't blame Soma for being so surprised. The samurai way of life dictated that honor and hierarchy were more important than life itself. Even a simple show of bad manners could cause your entire family to be dishonored or even destroyed.
局長という立場にあるからこそ、己の過ちは素直に認めるべきだと俺は思う。まあ、世に言う武士のあり方とは少し違うかもしれんがな。
本物の侍でありてえと思っちゃいるが、今の武士の腐ったところだけを真似てもしょうがねえからな。
Soma was dumbfounded. He didn't speak or move. He'd likely never once heard such words in his entire life. Kondo glanced kindly at Soma.
この絵を描いた伊吹君は元気にしているのかな。
はい、とても。
そうか。それはよかった。なあ、トシ。
そんな奴のことは覚えてねえ。
Hijikata grumbled in return. However, Hijikata's body language seemed forced. It felt like he was secretly relieved that this Ibuki person was doing well. The other captains too reflected a collective sense of relief, easing the tensions from earlier. Was this Ibuki a friend of the Shinsengumi? I knew nothing about him, but their honest joy made me happy in turn. They talked a little more, and Soma seemed touched by Kondo's warm demeanor.
では、そろそろ帰ります。本日の期待の大使の方々に対する数々の無礼、お許しください。
Soma seemed like a completely different person to the man we met earlier, and he bowed deeply.
それじゃあ、俺はこれで。
Heisuke, Nagakura, and Harada escorted him to the gate. They seemed to want to see him off.
いやー、悪かったな。無理やりこんなところまで連れてきちまって。
そもそもあんたたちが俺から絵を奪い取ったりしなきゃこんなことにはならなかったんだ。
そう言うなよ。 あんな物騒なもんを他の奴らに見られてたらもっと大ごとになってたんだぜ。
そりゃそうかもしれないが。
何にせよ龍之介の消息も聞けたんだし、一件落着ってことでよかったんじゃないか。
Ah, so Ibuki's the name is Ryunosuke then. Ryunosuke Ibuki, the artist of Soma's drawing. Absolutely no information that we didn't already know, except that did have a 1 next to it, so I assume we'll be learning more about him later.
そうだな。相馬だっけ？せっかく縁ができたんだし、気が向いたら遊びに来いよ。
遊びにって新選組と関わりを持ったりしたらいろいろと差し障りが。
ああ、そういや普通の半勤めだったな。確かに俺たちなんかと関わってるとバレたら面倒か。
いや、我が班は。
さて、そんじゃそろそろ飯の買い出しに行かねえとな。佐野、英介、付き合ってくれよ。
おう、そんじゃな相馬、また会おうぜ。
はい。
The three of them hurried off to get the shopping done, once again leaving us behind. Soma looked at me shyly and finally found the courage to speak.
そういえば聞くのを忘れていたが、君も新選組の大使なのか？
What should I say? I'm a page, or no I'm not. I mean... Not that I've been doing any of the jobs of a page, but that is the cover story, so we will stick to the cover story. Even though lying was never a good thing, telling the truth about my situation would have more than likely just confused Soma. Yes, I'm a page. Soma hung his head low and muttered to himself. Oh! Oh! We got a point.
幕府のために働いているというのに、徳川不代の我が
班は。Once again, pretty sure he thinks Chizuru is younger than she is. Is Soma relatively young and therefore not... Is he not actually here under orders? Soma's voice trailed off as he shook his head.
それじゃあ、俺はそろそろ行く。皆にもよろしく言っておいてくれ。
Oh, sure. Goodbye. I bowed politely and Soma walked towards the gate. And so, he walked off into the town and disappeared from sight. Soma. Da-da-dan. Kazue Soma. A Kusama warrior. He meets the Shinsengumi during a mission in Kyoto in which he was commanded by a feudal lord to survey the city. I headed back inside the compound, thinking about what a mysterious person I'd just met. Ooh! Kazue Soma's warrior record has been unlocked. Warrior record being, I believe, the bit with the stats in the menu. Oh, Chapter 2! 1864, June. Right, yeah. Warrior record is right here. Oh yeah. He is in fact unlocked. Doo-doo. Oh, he's classified as budding as well. Heisuke is also classified as budding. These are the two people I have points with right now. No news of my father had come forth the other day. However, Hijikata had granted me approval to join the rounds, so I believed that I would finally be able to start searching. He called me in one day. You didn't think you could have love interests outside of home? Yeah, the thing is, so basically, in the original version of this, the love interests are, yeah, these 5 on the right-hand side of this page, plus the left-hand side of this page, the left-hand side one of this page. There's basically, the love interest is basically doubled for this version. It's possible that the points for the characters who aren't Shinsengumi might actually be worth more in this early part because you don't interact with them as much. That's just a complete and utter guess on my part. Yeah, I will play the other routes off stream. That's the plan. That's always the plan. Let's not talk about the giant backlog. I was going to work through the backlog at the moment, but then Hakuouki appeared. Kind of ruined my plans for playing anything else off stream. Excuse me. I saw Okutera and Heisuke had been summoned along with me and felt a partial sense of relief. New anime season, yep. I'm really hoping that my list is not going to be quite as long as the last couple of seasons. I still need to play catch up with the end of this of the season that's just finishing up. I did start to look at what was on this season, and I didn't get around to making a list yet. Being summoned by Hijikata was quite nerve-wracking. Hijikata seemed to be in a foul mood.
お前の行動さん探しの件だがな。しばらく様子を見ようと思う。
Oh? What? But why? I'd been ready to finally begin the search. Hijikata continued with a sour look on his face.
長州の連中が不穏な動きを見せている。本来ならお前を外に出せる時期じゃない。
His expression was strained. I'd heard of how the warriors of the Choshu domain were associated with the National Imperialist Party. National Imperialist Party, a term for those who wanted to see the Emperor as the supreme power of Japan and also hoped to remove foreign influences from the country, also known as the National Imperialist Faction. They sought to expel foreigners, by force if necessary. All of their faith was placed in the Emperor. The Shinsengumi, on the other hand, served the Shogun, meaning they were directly opposed. If the Choshu was active, then dealing with them would be the Shinsengumi's priority. I might become a burden to them if I accompanied them on their rounds. Are you asking me to refrain from joining the rounds until things with the Choshu domain settle down? Hijikata nodded and turned towards the two men.
というわけで、今日からこいつを巡察に連れて行くのは取りやめだ。
なるほどね。だから当番の俺らが呼ばれたってわけか。
Yusuke mumbled as he got the picture, but still frowned like he was troubled.
でも今までだってこいつが巡察に迷惑をかけたこともないし、別にいいんじゃないかな。
Yeah, Heisuke's our buddy. Heisuke will vouch for us.
そうそう、僕たちに何かあっても関わらないようにしてくれればそれでいいし。どさくさに紛れて逃げ出すこともないしね。
He won't run away. I knew he wasn't being serious, but I couldn't stand to keep my mouth shut. I made up my mind the minute the men of the Shinsengumi agreed to help me find my father. I made a vow to never run from the Shinsengumi until I find him. My desire to find my father had never waned since I first arrived in Kyoto. I will keep my vow. So please, please allow me to continue looking for my father. I bowed deeply. Okuta's smirk slowly faded as he gazed towards me.
危険を承知でついてくるって言うなら、僕の一番組に同行してくれて構わないよ。それに行動さんらしい人を見たっていう証言もあるしね。
確かにそういう証言もある。だが危険だと分かってるところにミスミス出すこともねえだろう。分かってるのか？お前らの足を引っ張りかねねえんだぞ。
I promise I won't cause any trouble, please. If I lost the opportunity to search for my father, then I might never find him again. I bowed desperately once more, and Hijikata sighed heavily.
市中を巡察する組長の指示には必ず従え。
Yes, of course. Thank you so much. I didn't know how else to show my gratitude, so I bowed deeply again.
行くか行かないかはお前が好きに判断しろ。
Understood. I was at a loss. Hijikata was clearly opposed to me leaving the compound. If I was with Okita or Heisuke, I was sure I'd be safe. On the other hand, my presence could place an undue burden on them. What was I to do? Hey, we aren't on Hijikata's route. Well, we're not on anyone's route yet, but I'd like to go with Heisuke, please. Huh? It feels like there are more people walking around than usual. The streets of Kyoto were packed with people shuffling into the shops and businesses.
千鶴ちゃん、土方さんの反対を押し切って巡察に同行してるんだってこと。
I'm sorry. I was distracted by all of the people. The city is so much more cheerful than usual. I just couldn't help myself. Okita's eyes twinkled as he smiled, and I could sense him relax.
まあ、祇園祭りも近いしね。街が浮き立ってるのは僕も否定しないけど。
Ah, a festival. Gion, one of the red light districts in Kyoto. Gion Festival, one of Kyoto's signature festivals. It is held in June.
でも、上位派浪士たちの動きが怪しいのは本当だから。僕たちから離れて勝手に動くのだけはなしね。
Nationalism, a term for the philosophical and political leanings of those who wanted to remove foreign influences from Japan. Directly translated, means expel the barbarians. Yes. We walked down Kyoto's main street alongside the 1st Division. Everyone avoided us. They stepped away the moment their eyes caught the bright blue of the Shinsengumi's jackets. I guess we're actually out with Okita and not out with Heisuke Dan. I noticed this phenomenon briefly when I first joined the Shinsengumi on their rounds. It was clear the people of Kyoto feared them. Excuse me. I paused every so often to ask some of the less intimidated passers-by if they'd seen my father. I'm looking for someone. He's in his 40s and speaks with an Edo accent. He's a doctor, and he's a friendly, bald man. After a few hours of searching, I met someone who claimed to have seen a man matching my description.
そんな雰囲気の人ならしばらく前にそこのマス屋さんで見かけたよ。
He pointed towards a store selling wood. He pointed towards a store selling wood and charcoal. Thank you so much. Okita caught my eye and gave me a stern look. He looked as if he was going to reprimand me when...
貴様ら浪人か。手取りなら判明を答えろ。
The yell came from a Shinsengumi soldier, and Okita turned, his lips tightening into a thin line.
ああ、よりにもよってこんなところで騒ぎを起こすなんてね。
He immediately drew his sword and ran towards the commotion. Townsfolk shrieked and scattered like leaves blown by a gale. In the sudden press of fleeing citizens, I found myself pulled away from Okita. I realized that perhaps it was best. I didn't want to get in his way. Yeah, let's... I was going to say tuck in against a building, but I guess an alleyway is also fine. I decided to return to the 1st Division once the tension simmered... Wow. Not doing well with words today, am I? I decided to return to the 1st Division once the tension simmered down, so I hid in an alley to watch. Suddenly...
坊ちゃん、そこの坊ちゃん。巻き込まないよううちの店へ入りや。
Huh? A strange man was beckoning me into his store. I feel like that should be debating and not debated, so I'm gonna say it that way. I was debating whether or not to trust his kindness when I realized where I was. It was the store to which the man pointed earlier. Excuse me, but is this Matthias?
へえ、そうどす。
You see, I'm looking for someone and...
キエモンさん、このガキ、さっきまで新選組の沖田と一緒にいたぜ。
Huh? I'm not of the Shinsengumi.
新選組だと逃げろ。
No, it's not like that. I'm just looking for someone. Even if I had been walking with them, their reaction seemed excessive.
君って本当に運がないよね。ある意味こいつらも僕もだけど。
He gave a small, unconcerned shrug and leapt through the door of the shop. Matthias exploded with the clang of blades. What is the meaning of this? What on earth just happened? When we returned to the Shinsengumi headquarters, Sanan had a number of less than pleasant words. We kneeled for some time as the colonel berated us, before Okita finally spoke up.
そんなに怒ることないじゃないですか。僕たちは長州の患者を捕まえてきたわけだし。
When the fight was over, we discovered a massive arms cache. No one bothered to explain to me what was happening, however, and I was utterly lost.
怒る 沖田君は面白いことを言いますね。マスやキエモンと身分を偽っている人間は長州の患者である古高俊太郎だった。
Kiemon Messier, a merchant who sells firewood and charcoal. It was actually a cover identity for Shuntaro Furutaka while operating in Kyoto. Shuntaro Furutaka, a national imperialist ronin who was a spy for the Choshu when they were banned from entering Kyoto. He was responsible for gathering weapons and information.
我々新選組はその事実を知った上で彼を泳がせていた。
Whoops!
その通りですけど、でも捕まえるしかない状況だったんですよ。
まあ、宗司の言う通り、ある意味では大手柄だろうな。
でも古高を泳がせるために頑張ってた島田君や山崎君に悪いと思わないわけ？
The second time you brought up Yamazaki's name, I want to meet him. The corners of Heisuke's mouth twitched up into a smile, but Shimada himself spoke up.
東堂君のお気持ちもありがたいですが、我々のことはあまり気にしないでください。自分らも古高に対して手詰まりでしたから、沖田君たちが動いてくれて助かりましたよ。
Now Yamazaki is the new route that I am the most intrigued by. Because he's the character that I wished had a route when I played this initially. I don't have the faintest clue of what we need to do to get onto his. We've probably missed some bits already. Yamazaki nodded in agreement.
古高捕獲はすでに済まされた事柄です。その結果に不満を述べるつもりはありません。
お前ら首相な奴らだね。それに引き換え掃除は。
Nagakura rubbed Soji's mistake in his face. Both Kai Shimada and Suzumu Yamazaki served as Shinsengumi officers and spies under Hijikata. Kai Shimada, an officer in the Shinsengumi who also served as a spy. During times of peace, he serves under Shinpachi in the 2nd Division. Suzumu Yamazaki, a member of the Watch who reports to Hijikata. He was an officer of the Shinsengumi as well as a spy. Aside from the captains who were staying in the Yagi residence, they were among the few people entrusted with knowledge of my situation. In other words, these men were highly valued officers within the organization. Despite their resounding support, I felt a rush of guilt sweep over me and I spoke up. I'm so sorry. It's all my fault. Some Ronin were causing trouble, so I tried to get out of the way. I got separated from Okita in the crowd, and I didn't go right back to him. I ended up in front of Messier's, and suddenly someone was shouting about how I was with the Shinsengumi.
君への監督不行き届きは誰の責任ですか?
He glared at me, his eyes hard and angry, my throat tightly clenched.
一番組組長が監視対象を見失うなど、まったく情けないこともあったものですね。
When I'd first met him, Sanan had been kind, if a little quiet. After his injury, however, it was as if he'd become an entirely different man.
外出を許可したのは俺だ。こいつらばかり責めないでやってくれ。
Sanan looked up as Hijikata walked into the room. Hijikata's voice was neither angry nor impatient. Senan gave the commander a tight, wry smile and swallowed the harsh words on the tip of his tongue.
土方さんが来たってことは、古高の拷問も終わったのか？
ああ、風の強い日を選んで京の都に火を放ち、あわよくば天皇を長州へ連れ出す。
Poof. Set the city on fire?
それが奴らの目的だ。
We all felt the weight of his words.
町に火を放つだ？長州の奴ら、頭のネジが緩んでるんじゃねえの？
それ単に天使様を誘拐するってことだろ。そんなとか言ってるくせにやることはめちゃくちゃだよな。
How hard of a task would it be to set a city on fire? Well, this is the late 1800s in Japan, and most of these buildings are made of wood. So setting a city on fire is not the most difficult. This is the... Wait, I want to check something. Okay. Yeah, we're a couple of hundred years later than the Great Fire of London, but we're sort of in the same situation that London was in before that. In which, yeah, there's a lot of flammable material in use here. Anyway, imperialism. A term for the philosophical and political leanings of those who wanted to see the emperor as the supreme administrative power for Japan in place of the shogun. Directly translated means revere the emperor. I mean, clearly every time we've had imperialism or nationalism come up, it's been a different Japanese word. Since we're getting a lot of ones on there that are like, this means something slightly different.
「奴らの会合は今夜行われる可能性が高い。お前たちも出動準備を整えておけ。
承知しました、副長。
よっしゃ、腕が鳴るぜ。
They all expressed it differently, but they all agreed with Hijikata's orders. Hijikata then turned as if he'd only just noticed me.
それから高堂さんの件だ。西国の者と一緒に増屋に来たことがあるらしい。
With some men from the west? What?
今日で見たっていう話は本当だったってことだ。だが、それだけだ。
My father with someone from the west? Oh, my father went missing in Kyoto. How would he be with someone from the west? But no one had an answer for me. Hey, we have unlocked the ability to now that we have met Yamazaki, his warrior record has been unlocked. Hooray! Preparations for the raid began immediately. Within moments, the compound was like a beehive, with soldiers and officers running back and forth. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, and there was nowhere for me to be. My encounter at Messia's created some of their current headache, and I'd hoped to make up for it. Can I... Oh. It became clear to me that I had very little to offer when it came to preparing for a raid. At the end of the day, all I could do was stay quietly to the side to avoid being a burden. Just then, I heard someone's voice.
動ける大使が足りていない。近藤さんの隊は10名で動くそうだ。
俺ら土方さんの隊は24人だったか。大使の半分が腹痛って笑えねえよな。
Oh dear, they've eaten something bad, huh? Indeed, many of the men were bedridden from a food poisoning epidemic. They were short-handed for battle. They planned on dividing the troops in half. Kondo's troop would go to Ikeda Inn, and Hijikata's troop would head to Shikoku Inn. Ikeda Inn, one of several locations where the nationalist group claiming to support the emperor would gather. Shikoku Inn, one of several locations where national imperialists gathered. Yeah, they're not going, oh, I've got a stomachache, I can't possibly go on the raid. No. No, they are genuinely ill.
そういえば、あいつらは使わないのか。夜の任務だし、うってつけだと思うんだ。
Them?
お前らが減らしたけど、まだ何人か残ってるはずだ。
しばらく実戦から遠ざけるらしい。調整に手間取っていると聞いたが、血に触れるたび俺たちの指示も聞かずに狂われてはたまらん。
What? I could have sworn I'd heard something similar before. Something I wasn't supposed to hear. The two men hadn't realized that I was listening to their conversation. But it was crucial that I not say anything.
奴らも浮かばれねえな。戦うために選んだ道だろうに。
さあ、浮かばれないという表現は死んだ者に対して使うものだろう。
ああ、表向きは死んだことになってるが、本当は死んじゃいないしな。むしろめったなことじゃ死なねえし。
We're learning a lot of things right now about the thing that we're not supposed to know anything about. Like, they stop following orders when they see blood. They chose to do this to continue to fight. And they are harder to kill. I wasn't supposed to hear this. I shoved my fingers into my ears and closed my eyes tightly. This was the best I could do. I didn't want to hear anything else.
ん？雪村君、こんなところで何をしているのかね。
My eyes flew open to see Kondo in front of me. I couldn't just sit there. I told him the truth. I'd felt so useless and left my room to find some way to help.
なるほどな。君の気持ちはよくわかる。討ち入り前で皆も高揚しているしな。
Yes. Excited? More like bloodthirsty.
どうかね。君も一緒に来るか。
This does not feel like a thing that I should actually be doing. What? That was not what I'd expected him to say. You mean, go on the raid with you? I don't know what I could...
実は腹を壊して動けない大使が多くてな。人手が足りんのだ。伝令役になってもらえるとありがたいんだが。もちろん、君に無理はさせん。
Ah, as a messenger. Alright. Now that he mentioned it, I did remember hearing that Kondo's troop only had 10 people in it. Alright, if I'll just be a messenger. His face split into a wide grin, and I found myself accompanying their raid on the Ikeda Inn. Kondo's presence was relieving, and his good nature made me comfortable enough to ask a question. Excuse me, Kondo. Your uniform looks different from usual. Shinsengumi's unique light blue uniform made it so anyone in Kyoto would recognize them. However, Kondo's uniform was white.
これか？暗いところに押し入った時にすぐに仲間だとわかるようにな。
Ah, okay. That makes sense. A way to identify everyone who is on your side. I see. I didn't know the core uniform came in so many varieties. Ta-da! Core uniform. A white-coloured uniform used during the night or special occasions. Doesn't the enemy also notice them more easily? Yeah, but this... this is not an ambush. So... her usual uniform was well made, and the colour stood out. But this white uniform was more elegant. It's not going to be elegant in a bit, it's going to be covered in blood in a bit. Which is going to show up real nice on white, isn't it? It must be a pain to get the blood out of it, right? Wonder if that's going to be our job for the next week. I smiled when I looked at his uniform, and I braced myself for what was to come. It was the hour of the dog. Approximately 8 p.m. Hey! There it is! We finally arrived at the Ikeda Inn. I was sent off on several quick errands nearby, and I returned to hear Nagakura talking to Okita.
こっちが当たりか。まさか徴収判定のすぐ裏で会合とはな。
Ah, so the white ones have blue detail on the sleeves as opposed to the blue ones that have white detail on the sleeves. It's just a color inversion.
僕は最初からこっちだと思ってたけど、奴らは今までも頻繁に池田屋を使ったし。
だからって古高が捕まった晩にわざわざ普段と同じ場所で集まるか？普通は場所を変えるだろう。常識的に考えて。
じゃあ奴らには常識がなかったんだね。実際こうして池田屋で会合してるわけだし。
They bantered as if discussing the weather. Perhaps the Choshu were trying to trick the Shinsengumi. They certainly wouldn't have known. Whatever the reason for their behaviour, however, neither Nagakura nor Okita seemed worried. Heisuke noticed I'd returned and jogged over.
どうだった千鶴？会津藩とか諸次第の役人まだ来てなかった。
Aizu Domain, one of Japan's more influential clans. They were related by blood to the Tokugawa clan and were put in charge of the office of the Kyoto Military Commissioner. Kyoto Judiciary Commissioner, a shogunate administrator whose role was to oversee the daimyo, settle law disputes and supervise the city. The position was occupied by Sadaki Matsudaira during this time period. I didn't see anyone nearby.
日暮れ頃にはとっくに連絡してたってのに、まだ動いてないとか何やってんだよ。
落ち着けよ、レイスケ。
Nagakura smiled comfortably.
あんな奴ら役に立たねえんだから。来ても来なくても一緒だろ。
だけどさ、新八さん。俺らだけで突入とか無謀だと思わないの？
Heisuke frowned, and Takeda, who was on standby behind Heisuke, nodded in agreement.
この人数で踏み込むなど無謀にも程がある。ここは会津藩の援軍を待つべきかと。
武田君がそう言うなら分かった。もう少しだけ待ってみよう。
But no matter how long we waited, the officials never came. It was the hour of the boar. approximately 10 p.m. So we've been waiting for our reinforcements for 2 hours then. I looked up. The moon had inched itself further across the sky since we'd arrived at the Ikeda Inn.
さすがにこれはちょっと遅すぎるな。
近藤さん、どうします？これでミスミス逃がしちゃったら無様ですよ。
The chief had been quiet all this time, but when Okita addressed him, he finally stood up to speak.
これ以上は待てん。宗司、長倉君、東堂君、俺についてきてくれ。
They nodded quietly but firmly.
では、私は表口を固めますから、皆さんご存分にどうぞ。
は？武田さん来ないつもりかよ。
いいからいいから。中が暗くて間違って切られても困るし。あ、こっちが間違って切っちゃうかも。
Okita, that's what the white outfits are for.
沖田君、それはどういうことかな？
まあまあ、突っ込むのは気心が知れた方がいいだろう。というわけだから、武田さんは外を頼むぜ。
雪村君、少し池田屋から離れていてくれるか。ここは危険だ。老子が降りてくるかもしれん。もっとも逃がすつもりはないがな。
All right. And so they rushed into the inn.
会津中将お預かり老子隊新選組、戦議のため宿内を改める。
Lieutenant General of Aizu. The position held by the Lord of the Aizu domain, Katamori Matsudaira, was appointed to it by the Shogun after earning the rank of Lieutenant General of the Left Guard. Voices stirred following his loud declaration.
わざわざ大声で討ち入りを知らせちゃうとか、すごく近藤さんらしいよね。
いいんじゃねえの？正々堂々名乗りを上げる。それ。
自分をわざわざ不利な状況に追い込むのが新八さんの言う定石？
Heisuke and Nagakura had grinned at one another.
御用改めである。手向かいすれば容赦なく切り捨てる。
And so the battle began in earnest. The yells of men and the clang of swords filled the air, rolling out through the doors and windows of the inn. I could hear pounding footsteps, the screams of men dying, the wet thud of bodies dropping to the floor. Huh? Well, there was someone, but... all the men who'd come with the captains were keeping watch at the back and couldn't hear Nagakura. Takeda, on the other hand, was stationed outside to arrest anyone trying to flee the building. What should I do? The only person left to go help them was me. But even if I did, what could I do? That was when I heard Kondo. Uh-oh. Nagakura called out from somewhere else in the inn. No, Heitsuke! I had no desire to enter a slaughterhouse. I would only get in the way. But I could hardly stand around doing nothing. If I couldn't fight, I could at least rescue the wounded, find them and carry them out of the inn. I made up my mind, steeled myself and ran inside. It was pitch black. The smell of blood hit me in the stomach like a fist. There were dark lumps on the floor everywhere. The bodies of fallen men. Where were Okita and Heisuke? Charging in had sounded like a good idea at the time, but... as I looked around, I realized there was no way I could carry two grown men outside. What should I do? Heisuke, Heisuke. I had to look for Heisuke. I mean, he's also smaller and therefore easier for us to drag outside. He was always looking after me, so it was time I returned the favour. I looked around the inn. Out of the darkness, a Ronin appeared, his sword headed straight for me. Ah! As his sword swept down, another interposed itself between us. Nagakura's blade.
お前の相手は俺なんだよ。勝手に目移りしてるんじゃねえ。
The Ronin gurgled wetly as Nagakura drove his sword deep into his stomach. Blood spluttered everywhere. The thick smell of blood made me gag.
こんなとこに呼んじまってすまねえな。奥に平助がいる。言ってやってくれるか。
That's exactly what we were doing, Nagakura.
この先には誰も行かせねえから、平助の面倒見てやってくれ。頼んだぜ。
With that, he turned his back to me. Before I knew it, he was locked in battle with another foe. Understood. He would go to Heisuke just as Nagakura had asked. I turned and ran off through the battlefield the Ikeda Inn had become. As soon as I got to the second floor, I found him. Heisuke! You're hurt! He blinked and looked around, confused. Perhaps he couldn't see me due to all the blood running from the wound on his forehead.
Chizuru! Baga! Omae nande kitan da yo?
What do you mean, what am I doing? I'm here because I was worried about you. I thought maybe I could help.
Baga! 危ないだろ。俺の心配とかしてる場合じゃないし。
Yes, it is! That's a serious injury! I mean, possibly not quite as serious as it looks, because head wounds always bleed a lot. But also the fact that it bleeds a lot is a really bad thing for you.
別に大したことないし、こんなの唾でもつけとけ治るっつの。
As he spoke, he turned around, prepared to defend me. But he was so weak I could see that he only kept his grip on his sword with great effort. The Ronin across from us, on the other hand, was silent and calm as a great statue. And also, note the fact he has a face. This means he's important. This isn't just a random dude. Something didn't seem right. Suddenly I realized what it was. The Ronin had no sword. Oh boy, stop or help, stop or help. Oh no. I mean help, right? We had to do something about the Ronin. With grim determination, I laid my hand on my Kodachi. Heisuke's eyes went wide when he saw me move. I'll fight too. I might not be able to help much, but I can watch your back. He looked stunned for a second, and he grinned. Hey, correct choice.
無理無理。お前には5年くらい早いって。
It wasn't really the answer I'd expected to hear, and I couldn't help but laugh at it. The Ronin looked at us and sighed.
私には戦う理由がありません。
Huh? What did he mean? He spoke once more, as if sensing my unspoken question.
君たちが引くというのなら、むやみに命を奪うつもりはありません。
He was letting us go? Considering the situation we were in, That was quite a favor. How could we believe his word?
俺らには理由があるんだっての。長州の奴らを見逃すわけには。
Heisuke wobbled. Heisuke! Could barely stand.
決めつけは歓迎できません。私は長州に組みするものではありませんから。
ならどうして池田屋なんかに。
His words were forced, as if it took all of his effort to speak. The tip of his sword was beginning to waver. This wasn't out of fear. He just couldn't put any more strength into his arms, to the point of not being able to hold his sword.
命に関わる怪我ではないはず。早く手当てをするといい。
The Ronin took one last unreadable look at us, and then turned around to leave.
待ちやがれ。
Heisuke! He tried to run after the Ronin, but slipped in a fresh pool of blood and crashed to the floor.
くそ。次に勝つきゃ覚えとけ。
He made a few more grunts that sounded like attempts at further curses. Finally, he collapsed, unconscious. I need to stop the bleeding. Quickly, I tore off a section of my sleeve and pressed it against his forehead. Just as the man stated, it looked like the blow only tore the skin, although it did penetrate through to his skull. At last, I felt myself relax. That's when I saw the headguard lying on the floor. A simple piece of armor to protect the head. It's a sheet of metal attached to a cloth headband. Yeah, because you may know Heisuke's not wearing his, is he? It must have been Heisuke's, but it had been cracked cleanly in half. That fight must have been terribly intense. I was starting to feel dizzy from the stench of blood, but Heisuke needed me. I couldn't give up. Dawn finally broke. The raid itself had lasted only 2 hours, but for me, it had felt far longer. There had been 20 national imperialists at the Ikeda Inn. The Shinsengumi had killed 7 and injured 4 more. I learned later that, with the help of the Aizu domain and the Kyoto Judiciary Commissioner, they arrested 23 people. The owner of the Ikeda Inn had also been arrested for trying to help the Choshu rebels escape. The Shinsengumi had won an incredible victory, fighting against superior numbers in enemy territory. Unfortunately, it came at a heavy cost. Okita had taken a blow to the chest and lost consciousness. Heisuke had been cut on the forehead, and the bleeding refused to stop. Nagakura had injured his left hand. One of the Shinsengumi's soldiers lost his life at the inn's rear entrance. 2 others were severely injured there as well. It didn't seem likely that they would survive. The Kyoto Military and Judiciary Commissioners also fought the Choshu Ronin. Kyoto Military Commissioner. The person holding this office was tasked with keeping the peace in the city of Kyoto. It was occupied at one point by Katsumura Matsudaira of the Aizu domain. Following the Battle of the Ikeda Inn, the Shinsengumi had, at last, made a name for themselves. The incident where Shinsengumi troops raided the Ikeda Inn to halt a plot to kidnap the Emperor and burn the city of Kyoto. It looked as though the peace in Kyoto had been protected. However, never could I have imagined what the ultimate result of their victory would be. I simply had no way of knowing what was in store for us. (1864) June. End of June 1864. Weeks passed since the Battle of Ikeda Inn. The Shinsengumi grew stricter during their rounds to arrest the numerous outlaw ronin that escaped from the inn. Rumours surfaced of extremists who were plotting to exact revenge on the Shinsengumi. Additionally, there were also problems occurring with warriors from other domains. The atmosphere at the compound had been tense. Even so, things were finally settling down. As a result of my efforts during the battle, they relaxed their supervision. The Shinsengumi allowed me to sweep the area in front of the headquarters on my own. One day, I was out cleaning the courtyard by myself when I heard soft footsteps approaching me.
すみません。こちらが新選組の屯所ですか?
Oh, yes. The voice came from behind me, so I was caught off guard when answering. Hey, is this the last person on the list? No, not the last person, because I don't think we've met Ryoma Sakamoto yet. So this is we've already seen his name right there.
君は
Hijikata showed up suddenly, as if he'd heard us speak. Oh, Hijikata, this man is... Before I could finish my sentence, Iba ran towards Hijikata.
あ、やっぱりトシさん、八郎です。お久しぶりです。
I feel like I recognize his voice.
おめえは八郎か。なんだってこんなところにいるんだ。
When Hijikata realized who it was, his eyes grew wide.
驚きました。幕命で教視察に来てるんです。
Shogunate orders. Orders given by the shogunate. Who'd have known? Yep. I looked up his voice, and yep. That is, in fact, a voice I recognize. Also from, like, everywhere.
それより新選組って本当にトシさんたちのことだったんですね。この目で見るまでは信じられなかったけど、おめでとうございます。本当に侍になれたんですね。
おい、冷やかすなよ。まだ扱いは浪人と同じなんだからよ。
でも侍になりたいって夢が叶ったじゃないですか。
冷やかすなって言ってんだろ。
So I'm assuming these two are childhood friends.
いいえ、江戸じゃ泣く子も黙る新選組といったらとても有名なんですよ。それに池田屋の話も聞いています。皆さんとてもご活躍だったみたいですね。
ま、ぼちぼちってところだ。
Hijikata seemed to be unusually flustered as he looked away. Had this man come to visit him? Their report suggested they'd known each other for some time. Once I verified their conversation had come to a halt, I mustered the courage to speak to Hijikata. Hijikata, may I ask who this is?
そうか。お前は初めてだったな。
まだ名乗っていませんでしたね。僕、伊庭八郎と言います。幕府直参旗本で大番士奥詰役を務めています。
Ooh, 3 terminologies. Hatamoto, high-ranking vassals of the shogun who have the right to a direct audience with him and receive a stipend of less than 10,000 koku. Obanshi, an official post in the shogunate who is treated and behaves as a military force. Okuzume, an organization charged with protecting the shogun. It is comprised of talented swordsmen, including shogunate vassals and lower-ranking vassals. Oh, my name is Chizuru Yukimura.
千鶴ちゃん、改めてよろしくお願いします。
I noticed that. Chan, huh? Has he figured out something that none of the rest of them figured out on first glance? Well, very few of the rest of them. Oh, yes. Nice to meet you too. As soon as Iba and I finished our introductions, Hijikata urged us indoors.
まあ立ち話もなんだ。中に入ってくれ。
I took tea to the two in the common room. Hijikata told me to remain there, so I decided to listen in.
今日に来たのは奥詰めの仕事ってわけか。随分と出世したみてえだな。
Okuzume? The word was unfamiliar.
奥詰めってのはな、将軍の身辺を守る奴らのことだ。
Unless you made connections between us and our father. Yeah, that's an option. That is an option. He is? I'm honored to meet such a man.
いえいえ、そんなことありません。父の仕事の縁でたまたまなんです。
But what would bring a man of his stature here, Hijikata? This man Iba was someone who'd worked directly with the shogun. Why was such an important person here?
お前の考えてることはわかるぜ。なんで俺と知り合いかってことだろう。
I slowly nodded.
こいつはな、旗本であると同時に江戸じゃ4本指に入る道場の一つ、新行東流伊庭道場の跡取り息子だ。
Oh. Shingyoto style. Taught at one of the 4 oldest and most respected fencing schools in Edo. Hachiro Iba is the eldest son of the head of the family and institution. Iba Dojo. A dojo run by the Iba family, who are teachers of the Shingyoto style swordsmanship. It is also known as Renbukan. I'm not sure our father worked directly with the shogun. I could be remembering wrong. We have an encyclopedia note about Dad, right? Gonna be... There we go. Kodo Yukimura. Nope, we don't have any sorts of information in that regard.
その伊庭道場と俺たちがいた道場とはそこそこ交流があってな。その縁だ。
ええ、そうなんです。だからトシさんたちがいる今日に来ることになってとても楽しみにしていたんです。
勝手に喜んでろ。 だが覚えとけよ、今日はそんなに楽しいところじゃねえからな。
はい、肝に銘じておきます。でもそんなに危険なのに女の子でも大使が務まるんですか？
He did immediately notice what, like, no one else recognized. He's got sharp eyes, this one. Iba glanced at me when he asked his question before looking to Hijikata. That's... I glanced towards Hijikata, who looked uncomfortable. Iba seemed to pick up on something from our demeanors.
もしかして秘密だったんですか？
Was that supposed to be a secret? I didn't want to confirm, so I stared at the floor without speaking.
こいつはちょいと訳ありで預かってて、表向きは男ってことになってる。新選組でも一部の奴らしか知らないことだ。だからここでも下手なことを口にしないでくれ。
わかりました。トシさんがそう言うなら守りますよ。
So I would say maybe our disguise isn't as good as it could be, but it seems to have been helping with, like, everyone else here. So this guy is just remarkably observant. Iba drew Hijikata in closer in a jovial manner, and Hijikata seemed unsure how to react. Hijikata was normally really strict, though seeing him act this way was new. I had a lingering suspicion that Hijikata was actually enjoying himself. All of the commotion must have alerted the captains because they popped up out of nowhere.
おいおい、八郎じゃねえか。
聞いたことがある声だと思ったらお前だったのか。
新八さん、原田さん、それに皆さんもお久しぶりです。
そうか、お前も今日に来たのか。武者修行か、それとも狂犬物か。
なわけねえし、お偉いさんの護衛とか視察なんだろ。
まあ、はい、そういうところです。
If you're here to protect someone important, why are you here and not doing your job? Or are you an advance guard, as it were? Scooping stuff out.
あんたが今日に来るとなると、それなりの職務に就いたということか。
Iba nodded plainly in response.
君も今日に来たんだ。ま、死なない程度に気をつけなよ。
助言ありがとう。覚えておきます。
じゃあ今度飲みに行くか。なんなら今からでもいいんだぜ。
The captains surrounded Iba, speaking playfully one after the other. They all seemed to be enjoying the chance to catch up with each other. It seemed he really had been acquainted with everyone back in Edo. Hijikata watched their interaction with warmth in his eyes and muttered,
あいつは旗本で、伊庭道場の跡取り息子のくせに。
Hachiro Iba, the eldest son of one of the oldest and most respected dojos in Japan. He is a master of the Shingyoto-style school of swordsmanship, and his prowess granted him prestige among warriors and officials.
何が気に入ったのか知らねえが、俺たちとつるみやがってな。
He seems to be close with everyone. He seemed to be especially fond of Hijikata, though. But I didn't dare say it.
まあちょっとした顔なじみだ。訪ねてきたら中に通してやってくれ。
Understood. So he's allowed to just come by any time then. Before we knew it, evening had come, and Iba told us it was time for him to depart.
それじゃあまたね、千鶴ちゃん。
Goodbye. His face seemed reluctant, if not a little forlorn, and he left the compound. I stared at him as he walked into the distance until his figure disappeared. Iba was a mysterious person. Even if he was someone very important in upper class, he acted with integrity and kindness. He commanded a lot of respect from the captains of the Shinsengumi. I didn't know there was a samurai like him among the shogunate. And his route has been unlocked. (1864) July. July 1864. 1 month had passed since the incident at the Ikeda Inn. After the battle, I was able to leave the compound much more often. I supposed after what I'd done, Hijikata thought I earned a little more trust. I didn't feel like I did anything extraordinary, but I was genuinely happy that Hijikata approved of me. On this particular day, I was out on patrol with Harada in the 10th Division. Excuse me, Harada? The Shinsengumi is out patrolling day and night, right? In order to protect Kyoto?
ああ、そうだぜ。それがどうかしたのか?
But what exactly is it that you do? Harada was the only one I felt comfortable asking such a basic question. No? Felt... yeah. Yes, we have shown that we are useful. Hooray. Useful and not going to run away when things get tough. He was incredibly kind. In some ways, he felt out of place among the rougher members of the Shinsengumi.
まあ、ピンからキリまで大小様々だな。筋切りや追いはぎはもちろん、食い逃げも捕まえるし、喧嘩も止める。
People who don't pay for food?
商家を脅して金を奪おうとする奴らも、俺ら新選組が取り締まってるよ。
It wasn't really the answer I'd expected. The Shinsengumi's job seemed closer to a magistrate's than I'd first thought. Thinking back, I remember how excited they were during the raid. What they did at the inn was far more intense than their day-to-day work. A little further down the road, a couple of men in Shinsengumi blues were waving at us. Nagakura! I guess our separate rounds brought us to the same spot.
よー、千鶴ちゃん。親父さんの情報、なんか手に入ったか?
No, nothing today.
なかなかすんなって。今日がダメでも明日がある。そうだろ?
Yes. There was something contagious about his optimism.
で、新八、そっちはどうだ? 何か異常でもあったか?
いや、なんも。けど、やっぱり町人たちの様子がせわしねえな。
I hadn't noticed it before, but he was right. They were indeed acting strange. It almost felt like they were nervous about something. Now that you mention it, it looks like they're getting ready to move houses?
ああ、戦火に巻き込まれる前に今日から避難し始めてるってとこか。
What? A war?
そういや、まだ教えていなかったな。長州の奴らが今日に集まってきてんだよ。その関係で、俺らも警戒強化中ってわけだ。
Ah, the Choshu again, huh?
池田屋の件で長州を怒らせちまったからな。 あいつらの仲間から犠牲が出ちまったし、黙ってられないんだろうよ。
Are the Choshu going to try something again?
さあな。まだはっきりしたことはわからね
え。どっちにせよ、俺たちは俺たちの仕事をする。長州の連中が今日に来ても追い返すだけさ。
They accepted their situation and never complained. I had a good deal of respect for the two of them.
長州と戦か。もしかすると近いうちに上から出動命令が出るかもしれねえな。
You mean the Haizu domain will give you marching orders?
ああ、正式に幕府の一部隊として参加することになるかもな。
そんな機会めったにないからな。せっかくだからお前も出てみるか。
What? I was perplexed by his sudden invitation. Does this mean I could march as a member of the Shinsengumi? It seemed rather inappropriate for me to ask to participate just for curiosity's sake. Still, I very much hoped to be helpful in some way. Perhaps there was some way I could make myself useful, like at the Ikeda Inn. However, there was also the chance that I would become a hindrance. Yeah, I think I want to come with them, right? Yeah. My mind was made up. I nodded to Harada. I want to help. I would like to participate and help in some way.
お前の気持ちよくわかったぜ。もしその時が来たら、お前も参加できるよう俺も応援してやるよ。
I'm gonna go get myself some more water. I will be right back. And I'm back. Several days later. Pardon the intrusion. I carefully carried the serving platter with tea for the captains and made my way to the common room.
すまねえな。ありがとうよ。
すまねえな、千鶴ちゃん。そうやってるとまるで故障みたいだな。
Well, I was one, technically. Correcting him crossed my mind, but instead I stayed silent as I passed out the tea.
ありがとう、雪村君。すまないね。こんな仕事まで頼んでしまって。
Oh, it's nothing. After all, I am Hijikata's page. I spoke barely above a whisper, but Inoue smiled and nodded at me. Okita took a sip of his tea, and a mild grimace flickered across his face. Hey, he's okay! That massive blow to the chest was fine! Is something wrong with the tea?
ちょっとぬるいかな。人数分のお茶を用意してぬるくなったんだね。君らしいって言えば君らしいけど。
Rude. I'm sorry, I'll make a new batch right now.
いいって。俺ぬるい方が好きだな。すぐに飲めるし。なあ、はじめくん。
I agree with Heisuke. I would also like my tea to not be boiling, cause I can then drink it faster.
うん、そうだな。こうも暑い日にはぬるめの茶もいいかもしれん。
It was silent for a second before the door opened. Kondo entered with a stern look upon his face. Yeah, right? I don't like to burn my mouth, but my tea has to sit for a while before I can start drinking it.
Aizu藩から正式な要請が下った。ただいまより我ら新選組は総員出陣の準備を開始する。
Ooh, official request. That was loud.
ついに会津藩も我らの働きをお認めくださったのだな。
He looked just as happy with the news as the rest of them. Apparently, getting orders directly from the Aizu domain was an occasion for some excitement. Hijikata, however, was the lone exception.
はしゃいでる暇はねえんだ。てめえら、とっとと準備しやがれ。長州の奴らはとっくに今日に来てるんだ。俺たちが遅れてどうする。
As Hijikata rebuked the men, the warriors all scattered to their stations. When it was only the captains and myself remaining in the room, Hijikata vented.
てめえの尻に火がついてから俺らを召喚しても後手だろうがよ。
Thinking back at what happened at the Ikeda Inn, while the Shinsengumi were fighting hard, the Aizu domain was elsewhere and came strolling in much later. Remembering that incident, I felt like I could understand Hijikata a little better.
沖田君と東堂君は屯所で待機してください。不服でしょうが、私もご一緒しますので。
Ah, so they're still injured then.
池田屋での負傷が癒えていないように、私の腕も思うように動きませんから。
He rubbed his left arm absently and looked away.
傷が治っていないわけじゃないですけどね、僕の場合。でも確かに本調子じゃないかな。休んでいろって言うなら休みますけど。
俺だって別に大した怪我じゃないけどさ、近藤さんたちが過保護すぎるんだって。
Just a scratch, Heisuke. That gash went down to bone, Heisuke. I mean, I guess that's not actually that far on the forehead, but that's not the point. Hokuto answered smoothly while Heisuke pouted.
大した怪我じゃないとか嘘つくなよ。昨日も傷口に薬を塗られて悲鳴上げてただろ。
うわ、そういうこと言う。佐野さんは武士の情けとかないの？
だが悲鳴上げたってのは本当なんだろうなあ、地図。
ちょっとそういうこと聞くなって。黙っててくれたっていいだろ。
He glanced sideways at me. But, Heisuke, it's true that your injury hasn't recovered. His pangs hid the scar rather well, but it still looked painful. Nagakura broke the awkward silence.
そういえば千鶴ちゃん、もし新選組が出陣することになったら一緒に参加したいとか言ってたよな。
I mean, if Heisuke is staying here, I might want to stay here, actually. Shinpachi. Huh? Even though I told Harada that I was into the idea of joining them, it still seemed a little risky.
おお、そうだな。こんな機会は二度とないかもしれん。
For some reason, Kondo was easy to convince. I wasn't expecting him to be so easily swayed.
そいつが行くなら俺も行った方がいいんじゃないか？
怪我が治ってねえんだろ。本所で留守番をしてろって。
よかったじゃねえか、千鶴。
Now I feel bad about going. Are you sure it'll be alright? Hijikata and Sanan sighed at the sight of my reservations.
今度も無事で済む保証はねえんだ。お前は豚所でおとなしくしてろ。
君は新選組の足を引っ張るつもりですか？遊びで同行していいものではありませんよ。
三男総長、それは彼女が迷惑をかけなければ同行を許可するという意味の発言ですか？
I blinked. Saito? Standing up for me? Sanan seemed nearly as surprised as I was.
まさか斎藤君まで彼女を参加させたいというつもりですか？
Saito simply shook his head.
彼女は池田屋事件において我々新選組の助けとなりました。働きのみを評価するのであれば一概に足手まといとも言えないかと。
For in a million years would I have imagined that Saito might have a word of praise for me. My eyes grew wide, elated, and Kondo nodded in agreement.
よし、わかった。君の参加に関しては俺が全責任を持とう。もちろん同行を希望するのであればだが。
Sanan still didn't seem convinced. I looked around the room until my eyes met Okita's.
戦場に行くんだって分かってるなら、あとは君の好きにすればいいと思うよ。
You're not going anywhere. It looked like I wouldn't get any help from Hokuto. Perhaps I'd be able to help them out, like I had during the Battle of the Ikeda Inn. I nodded. Yes, I would like to participate. Oh no, we're leaving Heisuke behind. After that, everything was a blur. As quickly as we could, we prepared for battle and marched to the Fushimi Magistrate's office. A government office that supervised the Fushimi Station and Yodo Riverbank, which was one of the 7 entrances to Kyoto. There were a number of the Kyoto Judiciary Commissioner's men at the office as well, preparing for the battle with the Choshu. Magistrate's office. The magistrate is charged with the city's administration and peacekeeping. Walking proudly in front of the men, Kondo approached the government official near the gate.
会津中将松平片森様をお預かり新選組京都守護職の要請により長谷参陣申した。
Katamori Matsudaira, the 9th generation daimyo of the Aizu domain. He holds the position of Kyoto military commander. Katamori Matsudaira was the lord of the Aizu domain, and also the Kyoto military commissioner, which made him a very important person. The man standing near the gate looked slightly taken aback by the mention of the Shinsengumi.
要請だと。そのような連絡は届いておらん。
No, that didn't make any sense. What's going on? Perhaps sensing my confusion, Saito leaned over and whispered under his breath. Ah, so the orders got to us and not to them, huh? Do you mean the Choshu is overpowering the shogunate's forces? The Judiciary Commissioner and the Military Commissioner had similar organizations, but they operated very differently. The Military Commissioner's office was under the Aizu domain, while the Kawana domain controlled the Judiciary Commissioner. Kawana domain. Domain governed by Sadaki Matsudaira, the Kyoto Judiciary Commissioner. I didn't fully understand the relationships between each domain, but so far as I knew, the Aizu and Kawana weren't fond of one another.
しかし、我らには会津藩からの正式な書状がある。上の者に取り継いでいただければ。
取り継ごうとも回答は同じだ。さあ帰れ。身風呂ごときに用はないわ。
Wolves of Mibu, a nickname given to the men who would later become the Shinsengumi. It was both a reference to their reputation and an alternate spelling of Miburo, meaning Ronin of Mibu. How awful! And after they'd asked for the Shinsengumi's help. I felt Harada's hand on my shoulder and turned to look up at him.
まあ、お前が落ち込むことじゃないさ。俺たちの扱いなんざいつもこんなもんだ。
This is so frustrating. I wasn't a member of the Shinsengumi, but even so, I'd been living with the Shinsengumi men, seeing how they worked for myself. I couldn't bear to see them treated like this. Everyone at the Shinsengumi has worked so hard to maintain peace in Kyoto. How could these people, who are supposed to be our allies, turn us away without a second thought?
ありがとうよ。だが、ここはこらえてくれ。俺らが諸次第に対して下手に騒げば、会津の顔を潰しちまうかもしれないしな。
Oh. The Kawana would only need to complain that the Shinsengumi hadn't shown them proper respect to make trouble for the Aizu. All of the men, including Harada, understood what needed to be done, and they endured.
局長、諸次第では話になりません。奉行所を離れ、会津藩と合流してはいかがでしょうか。
Saito's suggestion to Kondo was rudely interrupted by Takeda.
ここを離れるだと？戦場で軍令を無視して何とするつもりだ。局長、戦場では伝令が交錯するものです。自ら動くなど愚の骨頂。今はこの場で待機すべきものと考えます。
ここが我らに与えられた陣ならば、その話わからんでもない。だが今は我が新選組の身体に関わる問題でもある。
君は新選組の戦奉行であるこの私に向かって意見を言うつもりか？
いや、 斉藤君の言うことにも一理ある。
Hondo nodded deeply as he glanced at Saito.
我が新選組はこれより守護職が設営している陣を探す。
And with that, the Shinsengumi set off to find the soldiers of the Aizu domain. Night had fallen by the time we arrived at Kujo Beach, a location near what is referred to as Kanjin Bridge on the Kamo River. After leaving the Fushimi Magistrate's office, we made for the Aizu Manor. Aizu Domain Residence, the Aizu Domain's official Kyoto residence. They rented a portion of the Konkai Kyomo temple in Kuretani. Upon arriving, we relayed our previous encounter and asked for new orders. The official we met with directed us to go to Kujo Beach. However,
新選組が我々会津藩と共に待機だと。
even the Aizu soldiers seemed confused by our presence.
そんな連絡は受けていない。すまんが藩邸へ問い合わせてくれるか。
Megakura appeared to have had enough.
あ？お前らんとこの反対が新選組は九条河原へ行けって言ったんだよ。その俺らを適当に扱うってのは新選組を呼びつけたお前らの上司をないがしろにする行為だって分かってんのか？
それは私に言われても。
The man flinched, then fell silent. Kondo's mouth split in a wide grin.
陣営の責任者と話がしたい。上に取り継いでいただけますかな。
At last, after a great deal of trouble, we were allowed to remain with the troops at Kujo Beach. The chief and the captains left the rest of us to speak with the Aizu commanders. They returned some time later, looking tired and drained. Inoue, who'd gone with them, also wore a bitter half smile.
どうやらここの会津藩の兵たちは主戦力じゃなくただの予備兵らしい。
Ah, the reserves, huh?
会津藩の主だった兵たちはハマグリ御門の方を守っているそうだ。
Hamaguri Gate, one of the western gates of the imperial estate. It is protected by the allied forces of Aizu, Kuwano, Kuwana, and Satsuma. They're treating the Shinsengumi like reserves?
屯所に来た伝令の話じゃ一刻を争う事態だったんじゃねえのか？
状況が動き次第即座に戦場へ馳せる。今の俺たちにできるのはそれだけだ。
So, all we can do is wait. There was a chance that the call could come at night. Accordingly, the men stayed awake, ready to act.
千鶴、休むなら言えよ。俺の膝くらいなら貸してやる。
Lap pillow, huh? Oh, no, I'm fine. Narada laughed as I hurriedly shook my head. It didn't seem fair for me to be the only one to sleep. Anxiety wrapped around us all as the night wore on and dawn approached. At first, I tried my best to stay awake, but ended up nodding off. Even as I drifted in and out of consciousness, I could see them nearby, persisting against the night. And then, at the break of dawn... A cannon? Cannon fire cracked through the morning air. In the distance I heard men shouting and the clang of metal. The captains looked at one another and nodded.
Yukuzo!
I stared at him for a moment, perhaps not yet fully awake, until I understood what he was saying. Right! I nodded quickly and got ready to depart.
またんか新選組。我々は待機を命じられているのだぞ。
An Aizu official tried to stand in our way.
待てだと。
Even during our lengthy march the day before, I'd never seen Hijikata angry. Maybe because of his position as commander, he was careful how he expressed himself when his temper flared up, but it looked as if he reached his limit. Normally, he left the yelling to Nagakura and stayed patient when speaking with army officials. This time, however, he finally had enough.
てめえらは待機するために待機してんのか。御所を守るために待機してたんじゃねえのか。
Imperial Estate, the Emperor's residence.
長州の野郎どもが攻め込んできたら援軍に行くための待機だろうが。
しかし出動命令はまだ。
Hijikata was in no mood for excuses.
自分の仕事に一かけらでも誇りがあるなら、てめえらも待機だうんぬん言わずに動きやがれ。
Without even waiting for a response, Hijikata spun around and stalked off, fuming. Where are we going? I didn't dare raise my voice above a whisper as I asked Saito, who was walking near me.
敵が確実にいる場所、ハマグリ顧問を目指す。
Hamaguri Gate? You mean where Aizu's main force is protecting, right?
ハマグリ顧問では激しい戦闘が始まっているだろう。あんたも今のうちに気を引き締めておけ。
Yes. Hijikata's fury seemed to rouse the Aizu's reserve, who up to this point seemed flustered by the threat of conflict. In the end, they followed the Shinsengumi to the Hamaguri Gate. Ooh, that's a little bit broken. Before long, we'd arrived. The gate was pockmarked with scores of bullets. Everywhere, dead and dying soldiers littered the ground. The acrid stench of firearms hung in the air. Even though I'd tried to prepare myself mentally, the sight broke my heart. The scars of war lay right before my eyes. The enemy, however, was nowhere to be seen. The battle was already over. After a moment of stunned silence, several of our men were dispatched by Hijikata to investigate. Kondo sighed.
しかし、天使様の御所に討ち入るなど、長州は一体何を考えているのだ。
やっていることがよくわからんね。長州は尊王派のはずなんだがな。
Kondo simply nodded in agreement. The Choshu defined themselves as those who revered the Emperor above all else, yet they attacked his home? It didn't make sense to me either. Nevertheless, the damage was done. I was in the middle of pondering their reasons when Saito returned.
夜半から朝方にかけてハマグリ顧問へ押しかけた長州勢は、会津と薩摩の兵力により退けられた模様。
The Aizu and Satsuma had been guarding the gate. Satsuma Domain. An outer domain governed by a daimyo named Shimazu. They initially supported imperial unification, but they eventually allied with the Choshu in the interests of removing the shogun. Well, that feels like a spoiler for later, doesn't it? This proved to be too much for the Choshu, who were forced to retreat. The corner of Hijikata's mouth curled into a sarcastic grin.
薩摩が会津の手助けか。世の中変われば変わるもんだな。
Or is it that they've flip-flopped again? Uncertain.
あんなに仲が悪かったはずなのに。いや、長州が共通の敵となっただけか。
The Satsuma had never been on good terms with the Aizu and other Tokugawa family domains. Family domain. A domain ruled by a son of the Tokugawa clan. They had been trying to outsmart the Tokugawa and ally with the imperial court to expel foreign powers. I recalled my father telling me that they were much the same as the Choshu in this regard. Unlike the Choshu, however, the Satsuma had gone to war with the English and suffered a devastating loss. Following their defeat, the Satsuma seemed to have become more open to cooperating with the shogunate. Or so I'd heard, but these were only rumors.
土方さん、公家御門の方にはまだ長州の奴らが残ってるらしいぜ。
Kuge Gate, a location now referred to as the Inui Gate at Matsuyama Castle. Hijikata's expression hardened as he considered Harada's words. Suddenly, Yamazaki appeared.
副長、今回の御所襲撃の中心人物らが天王山に撤退しているそうです。
Tenno Mountain, an important, heavily travelled location in the southern part of Kyoto. It is adjacent to the Setsu province. I'm pretty sure we've been to Tenno Mountain. Isn't there monks up there? I feel like we went there in... Why am I forgetting what it's called? One of our other games. Mount Tenno was located between Kyoto and Osaka. They seemed to be escaping from Fushimi towards Osaka. After hearing the reports from both Harada and Yamazaki, Hijikata contemplated deeply. Kondo was recognized as the formal head of the Shinsengumi. However, all major decisions were naturally deferred to Hijikata. This was no exception, and I could see that all eyes were on him. He was silent for a few moments, and then I saw his mouth curve in a small smile.
てめえら、今から忙しくなるぞ。原田、隊を率いて公家御門へ向かい、長州の残党どもを追い返せ。
あいよ。
斉藤と山崎は状況の確認を頼む。当初の予定通り、この浜栗御門の守備に当たれ。
承知。はい。
それから大将、あんたには大仕事がある。手間だろうが、会津の上層部に掛け合って、追討の許可をもらってきてくれ。
長州軍の追討だな。
天王山に向かった奴ら以外にも敗山兵は商家に押し狩りしながら落ち延びるんだろう。追討するなら俺らも京を離れることに。その許可をもらいに行けるのはあんただけだ。
The Shinsengumi were entrusted with the protection of Kyoto. In addition, this war was for aiding the Aizu and protecting the gate. Leaving our post to chase after the Choshu meant we needed permission from the military commissioner. In short, permission from the Aizu.
なるほどな。局長である俺が行けば、きっと守護職も取り合ってくれるだろう。
After what we'd gone through the day before, I didn't imagine Kondo's task would be an easy one. Still, if the representative was anyone other than Kondo, the Aizu would be unlikely to grant the request, let alone entertain the notion of a meeting.
源さんも守護職邸に行く近藤さんと同行して、大将が暴走しないように見張っておいてくれ。
はいよ、任されました。
The soldiers snickered at Hijikata's joke. Kondo gave an embarrassed grin. Perhaps he chose not to deny it because he knew he might go a little crazy.
残りの者は俺と共に天王山へ向かう。それから。
He looked directly at me. I wasn't a warrior, nor did I have political ties. Hijikata didn't know what to do with me.
お前は好きな場所に同行しろ。だが、近藤さんについていくのはもちろん。
Okay, Not going with Kondo, but I can choose any of the 3 other options. Alright. Kondo was meeting with the leaders of the Aizu. If I joined him, there would be nothing for me to do. I had several options. Hijikata would be pursuing the leaders of the Choshu attack towards Tenno Mountain. Saito would be staying at Hamagori Gate to protect it and to gather information. Harada and his men would be going to Kuge Gate to stop the attack on the Imperial Estate. The question was, where should I go? Well, I mean, this one is slightly less easy on the basis that we are well away from where Heisuke is, so we can't choose anything in that regard. So in that sense, I'd like to hang out with Yamazaki, I think. So that here. We can serve tea. I mean, the Aizu probably have their own people for that. I decided to remain at the Hamagori Gate with Saito. Before long, the rest of the Shinsengumi was gone, and it was time for us to begin our own mission. Saito mumbled to himself. The Shinsengumi had been ordered to stay with the reserves. Instead, we'd chosen to march to battle. Saito was probably right to try and smooth things over with the Aizu as soon as possible.
よろしければ自分が行きます。上層部も混乱していますから、今回の我々の行動を咎めることもないと思います。
わかった。会津藩の対応は山崎に一任する。問題が生じたなら俺を呼んでくれ。
Yamazaki bowed once, then turned on his heel and disappeared. Oh no! I was staying here for him, Saito. Yeah, well. The area near the Hamagori Gate was filled with warriors. I could see some men from the Aizu domain and perhaps some men from Satsuma as well. They appeared to be arguing over something. We'd been looking around to get a grasp on the situation when we sensed trouble and went to investigate. That was when we found the confrontation between the Aizu and the Satsuma. We were supposed to be on the same side, but old grudges didn't die so easily. What are they arguing about? I just barely had time to nod when one of the Satsuma men noticed us.
何かと思えば新選組ではないか。こんな者どもまで招集していたとは。
Rude.
やはり会津藩はふぬけばかりだな。浪人の手を借りねば戦うこともできんのか。
I could see the faces of the Shinsengumi stiffen and more than one hand moved towards a sword. Saito, however, was implacable as ever.
よまいごとに耳を貸すな。ただ己の務めを果たせ。
He swept his cool gaze slowly over the men, looking each man in the eye. They shifted restlessly. Their hands dropped from their swords. However, his face was bright red and his sword shook as he held it at the ready. They seemed about to rip each other to shreds when... Oh, it's you again! A tall man stepped through the Satsuma men and out into the space between the two factions. With a yell, the soldier threw himself forward, raising his sword to inflict a deadly cut. Saito stepped in front of the man. Saito! Why had I not recognized him until that moment? That man was at the Ikeda Inn. Saito's eyes narrowed as he observed the man. He seemed to be affiliated with the Satsuma. Which is weird, given he was hanging out with the Choshu.
池田屋では迷惑をかけましたな。確か東堂という名の青年にお相手いただきましたが、怪我の治りが良くないのであれば、加減ができずにすまなかったと伝えてください。
池田屋で平助を倒したのはあんたか。なるほど。それならば合点がゆく。
If Saito had even heard the man's apology, he showed no sign of it.
大方薩摩藩の密偵としてあの夜も長州勢の動きを探っていたのだ。
The man simply shrugged and tilted his head to the side, saying nothing. Saito took a step toward him. Ah! In an instant, Saito's blade was out of its scabbard. He drew it so fast I saw no blur of silver. The tip of Saito's sword stopped a hair's breadth from the man's forehead. He did not make a single move. Unperturbed, he glanced down at Saito.
あんたは新選組にあだをなした。俺から見れば平助の敵ということになる。
しかし、今の私には君たち新選組と戦う理由がありません。
He replied calmly. Saito remained quiet. His sword did not waver. However, the man showed no signs of moving and simply returned Saito's gaze. Was Saito really that angry? I could certainly see why he would have been, but this was not the time to settle grudges. Still, he was a tough man to read. What was I to do? I'm sure he knows what he's doing. Saito was also well aware of his duties. He was not one to allow emotion to compromise his decisions. This he had shown by ordering his men to stand down after being grievously insulted. He had the situation under control. I didn't know what it was, but I was sure he had a plan. He must have somehow sensed my decision, because for a moment his eyes flicked to me, and he smiled. Hey, Saito point.
俺とて騒ぎを起こすつもりはない。この場はあんたたちと目的を同じにしているはずだ。だが、侮辱に侮辱を重ねるのであれば、我ら新選組も会津藩も動かざるを得まい。
Saito made sure to drive the point home. The tall man from the Satsuma nodded deeply.
こちらが浅はかな言動をしたことは事実。この場にいる薩摩藩を代表して謝罪しよう。
Saito returned the man's nod and slid his sword back into its sheath. The Satsuma men seemed displeased, but whoever the man was, none of them dared to speak out against him. Now I understood what Saito had intended to do. He hadn't drawn in order to fight. By forcing the Satsuma to apologize, he had allowed the Aizu to save face. By directly confronting the issue, he had been able to avoid any bloodshed. Because the Satsuma man understood his intentions, he had offered an apology. I was relieved that we avoided another pointless fight.
私としてもこの場での戦いは避けたかった。そちらが引いてくれたことに感謝する。
He bowed deeply.
私は天霧久寿と申す者。次には見えるとき、互いが協力関係にあることを祈ろう。
And he finally has a name. Kyuju Amagiri. This is also not the last piece of information we will be learning about him, as evidenced by the one. a highly skilled individual connected to the Satsuma domain. He specializes in unarmed combat, and he possesses power and skill above many members of the Shinsengumi. Unarmed combat! He managed to do that to Heisuke, breaking through the headguard and everything, with his bare hands! This guy is strong. Amagiri was his name. His introduction finished, he turned away. He walked back through the ranks of the Satsuma, towering above them as he went. Saito, you never intended to fight him, did you? There was a short silence. Saito stared in Amagiri's direction. He then muttered, almost as if speaking to himself. It's interesting that we don't actually get a terminology note for iai, which is a quick draw art, I believe. Huh? Oh, there we go. It's not giving us the terminology because it's going to immediately explain it. Saito practiced iai, a sword style that focused on drawing a blade and striking in a single stroke. Amagiri had made no attempt to dodge his blow. Had he known that Saito intended to stop just before the blow landed? Saito muttered to himself, cutting the conversation short. Later on, we guarded the Hamagori gate, awaiting Yamazaki's return, but there was little else to do. After that incident, there were no battles. However, the tension remained unabated. Was it possible for the Satsuma and Aizu to find a common ground and coexist peacefully? It seemed like such a world was an impossible dream. The Choshu extremists' attack on the imperial estate eventually came to be known as the Hamaguri Rebellion. The incident, wherein the forces of the Choshu domain fought the shogunate and the Shinsengumi near Hamaguri Gate to regain power in the government after they were expelled. Although the Shinsengumi were called to action, their efforts were stymied and they found little in the way of glory. Communication with their superiors was poor at best, and they spent much of the battle waiting in the reserves. However, they'd encountered some odd people. When the Shinsengumi finally entered the battle, they all found themselves facing powerful enemies. Oh, so we would have encountered different ones if we'd gone with different people. But it's kind of appropriate that we met Amagiri, who we'd already met, facing Heisuke. Chikage Kazama, who defeated Okita at Ikeda. A very skilled man with apparent ties to the Satsuma domain. His extreme strength and prowess with swords rivals even that of the best Shinsengumi swordsman. He claims to be from the Satsuma domain. Kyuju Amagiri, who shattered Heisuke's headguard at Ikeda. He also claimed membership in the Satsuma. They had also met Kyo Shiranui, who'd fought alongside men from Choshu. A man with incredible skill, he is connected to the Choshu domain. His gunplay is very impressive, and it takes the Shinsengumi by surprise. Whoever they were, it was clear they were not allies of the Shinsengumi. Indeed, it seemed that they could easily become some of its greatest enemies. If they were to meet in open battle, the casualties would be severe. In the meantime, The attack on the imperial estate failed in the face of the combined Aizu and Satsuma forces. However, some soldiers managed to escape, setting Kyoto ablaze as they fled. By some terrible misfortune, winds that day blew from the north and fanned the flames, reducing the southern end of the imperial estate to ash. As a result of the Choshu attack, many imperial nationalists were executed. The Hamagori rebellion was over. The Choshu were branded as traitors for attacking the estate. From then on, they were known as enemies of the court. A traitor to the court, often used to refer to rebels. Kazama's warrior record has been unlocked. Boo! 1864, August. Love that we unlock that despite not having actually met the guy. August 1864. The short time span between the battles of the Ikeda Inn and Hamagori Rebellion created significant civil unrest within Kyoto. The Shinsengumi redoubled their efforts to keep people safe, but the more they worked, the more the shogun put them to work. His approval of their activities meant more official business, and it stretched them thin. Even with recruits from Kyoto and Osaka, it wasn't enough. After many discussions, the Shinsengumi chose to recruit even more men from Edo. Heisuke was tasked with preliminary scouting in the city. The harsh summer sun beat down on us. Kondo and I saw Heisuke off, his grin wide and his bags packed from the night before.
さて、じゃあ行ってくるとすっか。俺がいない間、みんなのことよろしくな。
Okay, I promise to help as much as I can.
大使募集の件、頼むぞ、ヘイスケ。俺も来月には江戸に行くからな。
The plan was for Heisuke to go to Edo early and scope the potential men. Kondo would follow behind a month after, as he had the final say with recruits. But actually, this was all preparation to meet a specific person. Isn't there someone you mentioned wanting to see?
雪村君はまだ聞いていなかったか。確か名は伊藤さんと言ってたな。北進一刀流の剣客で学もある人らしい。
Shitaro Ito, the head of the Hokushin Ito Dojo, and a loyal subject to the Emperor. Hokushin Ito style, a sword style that was popular in Edo during the Bakumatsu period. Both Ito and Todo used this fighting style. Aha! That's why Heisuke is going.
まあ正直言うと伊藤さんとはそこまで親しいわけじゃないけどさ、多分話は聞いてくれると思う。
それで十分だ。伊藤さんは尊王派と聞いているが、義をもって話をすれば必ずや力を貸してくれるに違いない。
Kondo nodded confidently, but Heisuke looked like he wasn't quite as sure.
よし、それじゃあそろそろ行ってくる。ゴードーさんのこともできるだけ調べとくから期待して待っててくれよ。
Okay, be careful. It should be quite hot on the way, so be sure to drink plenty of water so you don't get dehydrated. I watched him go, and the smaller his back became, the lonelier I felt. When I couldn't see him anymore, my heart twinged. I glanced up at Kondo. Are you thinking about all the new warriors you'll be getting?
ああ、やはり大使が増えるのは嬉しいものだ。それが有能な人材ならなおさらだよ。
He grinned, looking truly happy. His relief at recruiting new members reflected just how worried he must have been. I hadn't realized how much we were struggling. Now Kondo could finally smile. Time passed quickly after Heisuke left, and a month soon went by. The day for Kondo to leave for Edo was upon us. I came across him in the yard, mired in his thoughts. Hello, Kondo.
ああ、雪村くんか。どうかしたのかい?
Oh, no, nothing like that. I was just thinking about how you'll be on your way to Edo tomorrow.
ああ、その通りだ。平助をあまり待たせるわけにもいかんからな。
It will be a little lonely around here once you've left headquarters too.
何? 留守は都市に任せてあるし、いないと言ってもほんの一月程度だよ。
He didn't know how his kind generosity and Heisuke's bright personality kept me going day after day. They were the highlights of my restrictive life. I was sure I would be incredibly lonely with both of them gone. Yeah, they're the two nicest people here. It must have shown on my face because he suddenly looked troubled.
そうだ。せっかく江戸に行くわけだし、何か土産でも買ってこようじゃないか。君もふるさとが懐かしかろう。
Oh, no. I'm fine. You don't have to worry about me.
そうか。では、他に俺にできることがあれば言ってくれ。できるだけ期待に沿おう。
Come back safe? That would be a thing you can do for me. He was always so accommodating to me already. I didn't have any complaints. But there was something I'd desired for a while, but never had the nerve to ask before. Before you leave for Edo, could you train me?
稽古? ひょっとして剣の稽古という意味かね?
Yes.
いや、それはいかんだろう。俺の指導は荒っぽいからな。怪我でもさせたら高堂さんに申し訳が立たん。
Oh.
しかし、ずいぶん唐突な頼みだが、何か理由でも?
His eyebrows furrowed in concern. I'm sorry for being too presumptuous, or I wanted to watch over everyone while he was gone. The second one? If I'm going to help watch over the compound while you're gone, I want to be capable.
いや、しかし、君は大使ではないし、刀を振るう機会などまずないとは思うが。
You're right, but still, I want to be strong enough to be able to protect myself, at least the bare minimum, if something were to happen. Having witnessed many battles with the Shinsengumi, it was pretty clear how far behind in skill I was. The realization cut deep. Still, I might end up on the battlefield someday. Should that time come, I wanted to lessen the burden for my protectors as much as I could. I tried my best to explain how I felt for Kondo, and eventually he gave a firm nod.
はい、わかった。そこまでの熱意を持っているなら、俺も喜んで稽古に付き合おう。
We found a cord to tie up my sleeves and set about training me. Normal Shinsengumi training revolved around real-life sparring with wooden swords. Kondo decided to go easy on me with a bamboo one.
では、早速始めるとしよ
う。And I like that there's a sprite variant for that. That's cool.
先に言っておくが、天然理心流は少々荒っぽいぞ。
Right. I'm ready.
ならば、まず構えから見ようか。雪村君は剣術を習っていたんだったな。
Yes. It was mostly for self-defense, but I did receive instruction in fighting with a kodachi.
ならば、身についた型を崩すことはない。その流派の型で構えてみてくれ。
Understood. Bamboo sword in hand, I moved into the familiar stance that I'd memorized during my training.
握りが甘い。
His harsh words stung like a whip.
いいか、正面から切り合いになった時、真っ先に間合いに入るのは刀であり、刀を持つ手でもある。握りが甘ければ、その時点で容易に刀を落とされてしまう。これは気をつけねばならん。
Yes, sir. He hit me with the full brunt of his stringent teaching. I could see he was taking this seriously. And so I endeavoured to take everything he said and carved his teachings onto my heart.
今度は固く握りすぎているな。君の場合、腕力の問題で敵の斬撃を正面から受け止めるのは避けるべきだ。となると、自然斬撃を受け流す形になる。この場合だと逆に固く握りすぎていては。
With Kondo's instruction, I practiced swinging the sword over and over, doing my best to learn and retain everything he was teaching me. Several hours went by.
もうこんな時間か。
His words brought my head up and I blinked. The sun set without me realizing. Suddenly in the real world again, fatigue slammed into me and I collapsed to my knees. Thank you for doing this for me. My every limb was shaking and I was drenched in sweat. I sucked in air like I couldn't get enough of it. Kondo glanced over at me when I fell to the ground. His strict teaching expression immediately switched to one of deep concern.
すまなかった雪村君。俺としたことがついつい熱が入ってかなり無茶な練習を。
I'm fine. The fact that you forgot and ended up teaching me that way, even though I'm not your student. Thank you. It made me really happy.
そうか。そう言ってもらえると少しは救われる気がするよ。
It did not go easy on us. At all. His face was a mixture of relief and guilt.
しかし、本当にすまなかった。こんな風に稽古をつけるのは久しぶりで、昔を思い出してつい厳しくしてしまったよ。
You mean before you came to Kyoto?
その通り。俺とトシ、宗司に源さんは司令官という道場で天然理心流を学んでね。
Shie Hall, a dojo in Edo that taught the Tennen Rishin style. Its owner was Isami Kondo, the fourth generation head. Many Shinsengumi members studied or lived there. Tennen Rishin style, a school of swordplay popular in the Tama region. Kondo is a master of the style. Hijikata, Okita, and Inoue were among his students.
それ以外に三男君、東堂君、長倉君、原田君が転がり込んでいたよ。そういえば斉藤君も顔を出していたな。今は機会も減ったが、あの頃はよく互いに手合わせもしたものだ。
Indeed, talk of the old days came up once one night, when everyone was well into their sake. Kondo's family were farmers, but it was discovered that he had remarkable skill at sword fighting. The owner of Shie Hall decided to adopt him so he could continue training, and that's where he met Hijikata along with everyone else. It must have been rough doing all that training.
確かに厳しかったが、今とはまた違う意味で充実していたよ。
He gazed off into the distance, clearly reminiscing, and I felt a tiny pang of envy. If I'd been born and raised near Mibu, would I have met all of them under different, better circumstances? Kondo turned to look down at me kindly, a gentle smile on his face.
先ほど雪村君は門弟ではない私になんてことを言っていた。
は？
今、天然理心流4代目である俺が直々に指導したということは、ある意味では君も天然理心の門下だ。
Yeah, equally she might not have met them at all, that's true. I feel like the way in which we met these people, well, I mean obviously the way in which we've met these people has coloured our interactions with them, but I think in a good way.
Yoma, Toshi ya Soji, Genさんとも同門ということになるな。
Thank you. It was obviously not official, and it was barely a day's worth of instruction, but I was happy. My heart felt so light I couldn't stop smiling. I bowed once more. Kondo, I'm so grateful. Thank you for today. Even after returning to my room, the warmth in my heart didn't fade. I'd been living here for a while now, but still I often felt like an outsider. I was only allowed to be here because we were searching for my father. I was never really one of them, nor did I belong. But now, Kondo's words filled in some of the holes in my heart. I was truly grateful to him. Smiling, I collapsed onto my futon. Strain and fatigue from earlier was a good feeling, and I let it drag me under to sleep. (1865) February. Almost over half a year. The dawn of the new year came and went. It was February of 1865, and we had just finished breakfast. I opened the door to the common room, carrying a heavy tray full of tea. That means we've been here over a year at this point. Everyone, the tea's ready.
Oh, すまないね、雪村君。
I made my way around the room, carefully pouring a cup of tea for each person there. Inoue smiled warmly as he sipped on the tea.
やっぱり寒い日には熱めのお茶がうまいね。
Thank you. I felt a flush of pride at his words. It may not be very much, but I felt as if I was helping out in some way. Then Hijikata spoke, and his words brought me back to the present.
八木さんたちにも世話になったが、この短所もそろそろ手狭になってきたか。
まあ確かに狭くなったな。大使の数も増えてきたしよ。
広いところに移れるんならそれがいいんだけどな。雑魚寝してる連中かなり辛そうだしよ。
だな。前川邸で寝起きしてる連中なんて毎晩押し寿司みてえになりながら寝てやがるぜ。あれじゃ疲れが取れねえだろうし、なんとかしてやりてえよな。
そんなこと言ったって僕たち新選組を受け入れてくれる場所なんてないでしょ。僕たち今日の嫌われ者だしね。
Okita joked in response. The person sitting beside Kondo pointed at the map spread upon the table.
西本願寺というのはどうかしら?
Ah, the guy that they sent Heisuke to get. Another name for the Jodo Shinshu Howangi Temple in Kyoto. Jodo Shinshu Hongwanji. There we go. Temple in Kyoto. It allowed the Shinsengumi to make the temple their headquarters for a period of time. Spoilers!
西本願寺ですと先方の同意を得られるとは思えませんが。
でも数百人の大使が寝起きできるほど広い場所なんて他にないでしょ。それにあの場所ならいざという時も動きやすいと思うんだけど。
This man was named Kashitaro Ito, and this is the second thing we have learned about him. Military advisor and deputy commander of the Shinsengumi. His field of study is literature with imperialistic philosophy. He was recruited by Heisuke a few months ago as the Shinsengumi's military advisor and deputy commander. He gained notoriety teaching the Hokushin Ito style to his dojo, and he was known for being highly educated.
それに西本願寺は以前長州浪士をかくまっていたこともあると聞きますわ。我々が西本願寺に移れば浪士たちは身を隠す場所を一つ失うことになります。
そこまで考えての選定というわけですか。なるほど。
Kondo seemed very impressed by Ito's suggestion. However, a voice of protest arose.
僧侶の動きを武力で押さえつけるのはいかがなものかと思いますが。
Ito's brow twitched as if disturbed by the idea, and he faced Sanan directly.
自社を隠れ蓑にして好き勝手な振る舞いをしていたのは長州浪士の方ではなくて、今日の治安を乱す不逞浪士に配慮して差し上げるなんて、三男さんもお優しいこと。
Ito's dismissiveness seemed to leave a bitter taste in Sannan's mouth.
尊上過激派を抑える必要があるという点に関しては同意しますが。
じゃあなんだ
Who is this? I like his hair.
切り合うときはやあやあ我こそはって名乗りを上げて正々堂々とやるべきだとでも言うつもりか。不逞浪士どもがそんな鎌倉武士みたいなご作法に付き合ってくれりゃいいがな。
三郎、口を慎みなさい。
もっと悪い。つい本音が出た。
The other man beside Ito was Saburo Miki, who joined at the same time as Ito. Captain of the Shinsengumi's 9th Division, he is Kashitaro Ito's younger brother. They joined the Shinsengumi together. He was apparently Ito's younger brother.
皆さん方、ごめんなさいね。この子は昔から口が悪くて。
They don't look very similar, I gotta say.
三男さんもお気を悪くなさらないでくださいな。あなたのような方も新選組を大きくしていく上では必要だと思いますし、たとえ左腕が使い物にならなくとも、その才覚と学識は隊のために大いに役立つはずですわ。
That feels like a backhanded compliment. I watched as Sannan chewed on his lip. The tension was cut by another voice.
伊藤さん、今のはどういう意味だ？
Hijikata's voice was cold and sharp, like the sound of a blade sliding across a whetstone. Ito seemed taken aback and his eyes grew wide.
あんたが言うように、三男さんは優秀な論客だ。けどな、剣客としてもこの新選組に必要な人間なんだよ。
Without question, those were Hijikata's true feeling on the matter. However,
ですが、私の腕は。
Sannan only seemed to grow more dispirited. Hijikata must have realized the impact of what he'd just said, and his face warped into a bitter frown.
ごめん遊ばせ。私としたことが失言でしたわ。三男さんは皆さん方の大切なお仲間ですものね。仲がよろしくて結構なことですわ。新たに入隊した大使たちも同じ気持ちでいてくれるといいのですけど。
Hijikata's eyes seethed with anger towards Ito. Kondo tried to relieve the tension by stepping in and clearing the air.
とりあえず豚書移転の件に関してはもう少し話し合ってから決めるということで。伊藤さん、この後お付き合いを願えますかな。先ほどの件についてもう少し詳しい話をお聞きしたいので。
ええ、喜んで。
As the two stood to exit the room, Takeda was quick to follow right behind them.
近藤局長、私もご一緒して構いませんか。
いいとも。ぜひ君も伊藤さんの話を聞いて大いに見識を広めてくれたまえ。新選組幹部といえど剣術ばかりではいかんからな。これからは広い視野と深い知識を身につけねばな。
は。
Kondo left the common room with Ito and Takeda. Miki, however, still sat before us. He smirked coldly toward us and slinked off away from the common room. Hokuto spoke up once Miki's footsteps were no longer audible.
まったく、誰なのさ、あんな人たちを連れてきたのは。
犯人はまだ江戸にいるだろう。平助の野郎、帰ってきたらとっちめてやる。
We've been without Heisuke for 8 months. Sad times. So maybe more like 7 months actually. The last date we had was July actually, wasn't it? Not June.
伊藤さんは尊攘派なんだろう。長州の奴らと同じ考えの奴がよく新選組に入る気になったもんだな。
尊皇攘夷だからって長州と同一視されるのは心外らしい。そもそも尊皇とはとかなんとかわけのわからねえことを抜かしてやがったんだよ。近藤さんも近藤さんであっさり丸め込まれやがって。
近藤さんってお人よしですからね。ああいう口がうまくてお腹の中が真っ黒な人に騙されやすいんだよな。
その伊藤さんが参謀で弟が9番組組長か。めんどくさいことになったぜ。
Eventually, Hijikata approached Sannan, who weakly hung his head, facing the floor in shame.
三男さん、あんな奴の言うことなんざ気にするんじゃねえぞ。
Sannan just laughed dryly and shook his head.
伊藤さんは学識も高く弁舌に優れ、剣の腕も確かな方ですよ。優秀な参謀の入隊でついに総長はお役御免というわけですね。
As much as I don't really like Sannan personally, this still hurts. Poor guy.
おい、三男さん。
Sannan left the room as Hijikata's voice trailed behind, echoing in the hall.
三男さんも気の毒にな。あの調子だから近頃は大使連中にも避けられちまった。
What? But why?
無理もねえだろう。どんな言葉をかけても全部悪く取られちまうし、何を言っても皮肉と嫌味しか返ってこねえから、大使たちも怯えちまって近づかねえんだよ。
Oh no. I might not have known any of them that well. I knew that Sanan had been quite well liked by the other warriors before his injury.
土方さん、伊藤さんたちなんて適当な理由をつけてさっさと追い出しちゃってくださいよ。あの人たちが来てから僕、毎晩嫌な夢ばっかり見るんですよね。
そんなことできるわけねえだろうが。近藤さんはすっかり伊藤さんに心酔してるみてえだしな。伊藤さんと一緒に入隊してきた連中もそんな扱いをされりゃ黙っちゃいねえだろ。
役に立たない人だな。無理を通すのが鬼副長の役目でしょ。
んじゃてめえが副長やりゃいいだろうが。で、あいつらを追い出せ。
嫌に決まってるじゃないですか。そんなめんどくさいの。
The consensus was that Ito was not to be trusted. No one spoke in his defense. During all of this, only one person sipped his tea quietly. Saito? Saito quietly looked up as I spoke to him. What do you think about Ito? I mean, about Ito joining, that is.
さまざまな考えを持つ者が属してこそ、タイというのは広がりを見せるものだ。
So then...
だが無理に広げようとすると、内部から瓦解を始めることもある。
His words were a dark omen. We were short on hands, so Ito's presence was welcome, but his presence seemed to be a recipe for dissension, if not outright disaster. The setting sun glowed through the windows with a warm, rich maroon, an ominous kind of beauty. It's cold. I came out into the yard and my body seized up due to the cold. Spring seemed far away. I wasn't too fond of Ito, but it was Sanan and his condition that truly worried me. I really wish his arm would just heal. His injured left arm was the source of the pain eating away at his heart. Still, it would be wonderful for Sanan's arm to simply start working again. Unfortunately, that seemed like the stuff of a child's fable, not real life. That was when I remembered.
薬でも何でも使ってもらうしかないですね。三男さんも納得してくれるんじゃないかな。
そうじ。めったなこと言うもんじゃねえ。幹部が羅刹になってどうするんだよ。
Okita had mentioned that the Shinsengumi had some secret serum. Judging from how they spoke of it, it was an item with particular circumstances. But I wasn't supposed to know about the existence of that serum. If I was to look into it without approval, there was no doubt that I'd be punished. But I was the daughter of a doctor. I was fairly sure I had more knowledge on medicine than the men of the Shinsengumi did. Oh, we are not touching that one with a barge pole. Absolutely not. I'm going back to my room. Perhaps it would be best to just return to my room. I didn't want to get in trouble for wandering around. Most of all, I didn't want to find myself in anyone's way. Even though I was worried about Sanan, maybe it was for the best for me to stay put. Oh, you'll find out eventually, and I don't think it's going to be too much longer before we know exactly what the serum and the Furies are. The sun dipped below the horizon. All of a sudden, the compound exploded with activity. My worry increased tenfold. Had something happened? I waited for a few moments for the activity to settle down, but it showed no signs of stopping. Something was wrong. I could feel it. I struggled against it for as long as I could, but eventually my curiosity got the better of me. There must be someone in the common room. I decided to go ask what had happened.
まさか三男君が自ら薬に手を出してしまうと。
Oh yes! We're gonna find out very, very soon.
ったく、どいつもこいつも何してやがるんだ。三男さんから目を離すなってあれだけ言ったじゃねえか。
んなこと言われてもよ、薬を飲むとは思わねえだろ普通。あれを管理してたのは三男さんだったから、薬を持っててもおかしくはねえし。
小瓶一つぐらいなら懐に隠し持ってても気づかなかっただろうしな。確かにあの薬を使えば腕は治るかもしれねえだろうが、あれは失敗作なんだろう。飲んだ連中もみんな結局は血に狂っちまった。ってことは三男さんは。
I wondered what they meant by serum. Occasionally I'd heard the captains referring to something similar. Did Sanan drink that?
三男総長は独自に薬の改良を続けていたと聞きます。理性を保ったまま腕の傷を治す。その成功にかけたのでしょうが、失敗を悟った三男総長は掃除の静止を聞かず自陣したと。
Oof. Yeah, I'm kind of glad we weren't there. I assume that will be a scene that is relevant to Sanan's route when I eventually get around to it. Suicide? The words were past my lips before I'd realised. As one, all eyes in the room turned toward me.
どうしてお前がここにいる？
What I'm doing is learning about things I shouldn't know about. His cold gaze pinned me in place. My throat tightened until I could barely breathe, let alone speak. I felt the same hostility as on the night I had first arrived at the headquarters of the Shinsengumi. He was thinking about whether he should kill me or not.
トシ、そろそろ彼女にも聞いてもらった方がいいんじゃないか。彼女は光道さんの娘だ。知る権利はあるだろう。
What does my father have to do with this? My eyes went wide at the mention of my father's name. Why would my father's name come up here? Did he have something to do with this? Hijikata's gaze slid to Kondo, his mouth twisted in an unpleasant grimace. After a moment, he sighed with exasperation.
先に言っておく。お前は新選組に必要ねえ人間。光道さんを探す役には立つかもしれねえ。お前がいなくてもどうってことはねえ。もしおかしな真似をすれば即座に殺す。そいつをてめえの肝にしっかり命じてから話を聞け。
Alright, it's time for some answers. The intensity of Hijikata's statement felt like a sharp dagger pointed at my throat. I was Kodo's daughter. The Shinsengumi only let me stay with them on the off chance I'd be useful during the search for my father. Although it wasn't their primary duty, the Shinsengumi had the Watch for all manhunts. The Watch, an organisation that monitored internal Shinsengumi affairs and conducted external covert reconnaissance. They reported directly to Commander Hijikata. There was no real need for me to be here. Are you going to kill me? Anxiety gnawed at my stomach, Hijikata's eyes narrowed with irritation at my sudden question.
まだ殺さねえよ。もっとも、いつ死のうと困らねえがな。
Oh. I wasn't going to be killed. At least this time. I supposed I should be happy for that. I'd been with the Shinsengumi for nearly a year. Shouldn't it be over a year? And my position with them hadn't changed. That was the truth of the matter, and the truth cut deep.
今までは君にも伏せていたのだが、コードさんはもともとここで薬の研究をしていたな。
There we go! Our father is the one responsible for this serum. Which is probably why they want to find him again, since, it's not working very well. You mean... I gulped audibly and I carefully formulated what I was going to say in my head before I said it aloud. The one that Sanan took. Kondo nodded gravely.
あの薬はもともと幕府の高官がここに持ち込んだものだ。何でも西洋との交易で手に入れたものだと聞かされている。
Curiosity swelled inside of me. My head felt light from the anticipation. Still, I knew that digging deep was dangerous.
人間の筋力と自然治癒能力を爆発的に高める西洋渡来の薬。あれを飲んだ者は野生の獣と渡り合うことも不可能ではなくなる。
Strong enough to conquer a wild beast. I mean, what level of wild beast are we looking at here? Because, you know, I could take a rabbit. Could probably take a fox. Are we going for bear? Because that one might be difficult. Oh, or a boar. Yeah, boars are also tough. Boars, bears, wolves. Probably that level, right?
致命傷でなければ傷は立ちどころに塞がる。つまり首を落とされるか心臓を撃たれぬ限り戦い続けることができるのだ。
So unkillable unless you get your head chopped off or get pierced through the heart. I wonder what that sounds like. Did such a serum really exist? It felt like I was hearing some sort of fairy tale.
ただし、あの薬には甚大な副作用がある。
A cost?
あれを飲んだ人間は狂気に駆られ、人の血なしでは生きることさえできなくなるのだ。
They go mad and are unable to survive without drinking the blood of others. Oh, I wonder what this could be.
新選組の大衆実験台に薬の改良を進めていたのがコードさんだ。
Ah, wonderful. Human experiments. My father? Somewhere deep in my heart, I'd known my father had some connection with all of this. However, knowing my father was involved with driving men mad, all I could do was wonder why. To perform experiments on the Shinsengumi to drive them mad? Just why? I couldn't understand why my father would do such a thing. Suddenly I realized something. So, that night in the alley? Saito nodded.
薬を飲んだ大使たちは南部邸にいる。ヤギ邸では人目につくからな。
Nambu residence. Located in the back of the Yagi residence, Sanan takes refuge here after suffering injuries, and it is later used to hide other furies.
血に触れぬ限り正気を失うことはない。我々にとってはよしやすい者たちだ。
Saito spoke so quietly and indifferently, it felt like I was talking to a stranger. Living with them for so long made me forget. There was still a line between myself and the Shinsengumi men that couldn't be crossed, and his coldness reminded me of it. I'm alright.
無理すんな。こんな話を聞かされりゃ気分も悪くなるよな。
おしゃべりはその辺にしとけ。今は三男さんのことが先だろうが。
つってもどうするんだ。三男さん死にかけてるじゃねえか。
薬はここに持ち込まれたばかりの頃とは違う。まだ狂うと決まったわけじゃねえ。薬が効いてるんならどんな怪我でも治るはずだからな。
It felt like Hijikata was holding back, as if he was trying to keep his hopes low.
近藤さん、あんたは三男さんの様子を見てきてくれるか。今夜生きるか死ぬか狂うかの瀬戸際だろうからな。
うん、言ってこよう。確か彼の部屋には掃除もいるのだったな。
Kondo nodded deeply, then stood and headed for Sanan's room.
三男さんの部屋へは誰も近づけるな。特に伊藤藩の連中はな。
ああ、わかってる。
新橋、前川邸の様子を見てきてくれるか。
わかった。
As he passed, Nagakura's eyes met mine for an instant, and his gaze. I felt the same hostility as when I'd first arrived. They were filled with doubt and suspicion.
斉藤は中庭で待機しろ。伊藤一派の警戒と牽制を頼む。御意。
Eventually, Hijikata turned his gaze onto me.
雪村、今夜は幹部のそばにいる。
Well, the captain I would pick. Hijikata isn't here, is he? Yes. It seemed as though his suggestion wasn't out of worry for my well-being. It just wasn't a wise idea for me to be wandering around.
裏の南部邸には絶対に行くんじゃねえぞ。連中、夜は気が立ってるからな。
All right. Even with their warnings, I knew that my options for where to go were limited. Where should I go? Okay, so the common room is where Hijikata is right now. The inner courtyard is where Saito is being sent to. Outside, uncertain who that aims at. Possibly Harada? Back to my room doesn't feel like an option I should be picking, given that Hijikata said I needed to stay with someone else. How are the points looking? Closed, closed, budding, closed, 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 budding, closed, 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 closed. Okay. I was kind of wondering if going to the courtyard with Saito would endanger my decisions. But we really should spread this out. What should I do? What do you guys think? Like, I'm tempted to remain in the common room. Or, I mean, outside could be anything. I do also like Saito. He's like... Is he in the upper half of my preferences? Yeah, I think so. He was... yeah, out of the original, like, 6 routes, he was probably, like, number 3 for me. So, I do kind of like Saito. Actually, was he like number 2 or number 3? One of somewhere in the upper half. Yeah, okay, right. Let's go hang out with Saito. Winds chilled the dark courtyard. Actually, having chosen this and changed scenes, I should probably stop for today looking at the time. Let's not start this next scene. Alright. Thank you very much for coming. It's been fun. Although we haven't seen nearly enough of Heisuke this time. Boo. But we also learned a great deal today. Both about the serum and also about history. Yes, a cliffhanger. Will Sandan survive? Will he go mad? I guess we'll find out. So yes, if you're new here and you've enjoyed your time, please consider subscribing to the channel. You can also follow me on social media, which is linked in the description box. The streaming schedule for the channel goes up both over there on social media and over here on YouTube in the post tab of the channel. Did I remember to do it? Why do I always have to check this on Mondays? Yes, I did do it. The next scheduled stream is Wednesday, 7 PM for some more Pokemon Legends ZA. So I hope to see you then, or another time. Once again, thank you very much for coming, and this is Kalla signing out. See ya, bye bye.